Hello, everybody. It is time for Clutch with Keon Rose. That would be me. Thank you for joining me today and giving me just a little bit of your time. As always, we start the show talking about the platforms. Not the platform shoes, the platforms. Where can you find us online? Well, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you search Hot News Talk Radio, we are the first thing that comes up. And of course, if you'd love to listen to us, we stream live on YouTube. And of course, you can go through our classic episodes. You never call them old, man. You always call them classic. But you can also listen to us live via the TuneIn Radio app. It's in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. Download it right to your mobile device. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow, press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. Also, and obviously most importantly, hotnewstalkradio.com. That's where you can find us. We've got a huge show today. There's a way to talk about sports, and I was talking about it a little bit yesterday. You can talk about lists, you can bring up stats, you can bring up numbers and pros and cons of things. For instance, we're talking about Terrell Owens. You talk about Terrell Owens and should Terrell Owens be in the Hall of Fame? Come up with a bunch of reasons why Terrell Owens should be in the Hall of Fame. Come up with a bunch of reasons why Terrell Owens shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. And start the discussion from there. Okay? And that is a great way to do radio, I think. But in order to do radio in that way, you've got to have polarizing figures, polarizing characters. I don't even want to just say athletes, because it can sometimes be coaches. Sometimes it can be broadcasters. Sometimes broadcasters do that. We pull ourselves into the story. Shouldn't be there. But we have a whole clip of Stephen A. Smith going off on Kevin Durant, doing the one thing that you don't want to do in a story, which is to become the story. But it happens. And then of course I've got something to talk about. So I seem to have, and my girlfriend is very annoyed with this. I seem to have a fixation on Cam Newton. I would like to come out first and foremost and say I do not. But he's a polarizing figure. He seems to draw random attention to himself in a way and at a rate that nobody else is doing right now. Every day it's something with him. You cannot avoid the story. And not only that, but it's such a talkable story, you can't work your way around it. And this was one of the fun ones. Like Tom Brady and Deflategate, that was polarizing. That was about talked out about a week into it. And then we kept talking about it all summer long. We talked about it July, June, August, September. We just kept talking about Deflategate until finally the season started. This is different. This has been happening for just a couple of days. It's a little bit more fresh. So, let's go ahead and beat it to death, because Cam Newton was surly after the Super Bowl 50. The Panthers lose to the Broncos 24-10. Cam Newton is in a press conference after the game, and he is obviously surly, just giving one-word answers. Just absolutely, like you're a reporter there, you're one of the guys with the microphone in his face, and he's just handing you absolutely useless answers. Just no, yes, we got beat. Yes, no. Like, you can't do anything with the stuff that he was giving you. But there was this idea that somehow the same Cam Newton, who everyone is excited that he's dabbing and that he's dancing and that he's celebrating, and you love the way that he's got such joy in how he plays, this same guy was somehow going to magically transform into a guy that couldn't hide his grief. That he was going to become, you're talking about a guy who's not exactly the most humble of winners. He was just going to suddenly be a humble loser. That was just going to happen. Right. And also, I'm going to be the king of France tomorrow. It's just not going to happen, folks. He's that guy. And if you like the highs, you've got to take the lows. Okay? Being in radio is a very cool job. I get to stand here and talk about sports. That's about the coolest thing that has ever happened. But when people disagree with me, when people call me names online, call me names on Twitter, say that I'm stupid and all of these things. That's what comes with it. That's what comes with standing in front of a microphone and saying stuff, right? So you take the highs, you got to take the lows too. You can't separate the two things. And so Cam Newton was talking to the media today, and he was a little bit more calm. He had clearly processed everything that had happened. And so you get a little bit more of a more thoughtful, articulate version of the guy. And seems self-aware, which I appreciate. That, okay, you're a sore loser. I'm not going to defend Cam's behavior necessarily, but I will defend the idea of the morality of him suddenly being this sore loser and us wanting him to be something that he's not. He has never been that. Why would he suddenly become that? So I'm not defending the actions. The man stood there and acted like a giant man baby. Like, that's just what happens. We should have expected that. We should have seen it coming. It shouldn't be a shock. So he was talking to the media today with some more time between him and the game. And he basically acknowledged, like, yeah, I was being a sore loser. I don't handle losing well. He quoted Vince Lombardi. He said, you know, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser, which is a Vince Lombardi quote, which I think is funny that people are criticizing him for that quote. And then the moment you realize, no, Vince Lombardi, who the NFL Super Bowl trophy is named after, said that, then all of a sudden it's not the worst thing that anybody could say. I disagree with that quote regardless. Show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. Well, show me a bad loser and I'll still show you a loser. Like, you still lost the game. At that point, maybe do try to have some dignity. Leave with your head held high. But he basically acknowledged he reacted the way that he reacted, and he shouldn't have done that. And there was a self-awareness about it that you can appreciate. But I really don't like it when the media stands there and goes, okay, he apologized to us. It makes us feel better. Why? Why does that make you feel better? What it is that Cam Newton thinks on a daily basis has, outside of planning for this show, no impact at all in my life. And it has no impact at all in your life either. Why are we looking for this holy grail of a person that is just filled with perfection and humility, and they're just the perfect guy? They have fun when it's time to have fun. They don't have when it's time to be humble, they're humble when it's, I mean, come on. And then, of course, you don't get that. And then you stand there, the media, we stand there and we call guys boring. Like, I've heard people say that about Russell Wilson, that he's boring. But Russell Wilson is giving you the same humility that you're asking for from Cam. How is that any different? You can't have it both ways. Either you want the boring, nicely packaged cliches, or you take the emotion and all of the emotions. You don't get to pick and choose which ones you have and which ones you don't have. And I think that ultimately this experience got to be good for Cam in the long run. You just learn how the media is and what kind of storm they can create out of nothing. And a lot of guys learn this lesson the hard way. That's not the worst way to learn that lesson. You know, Michael Vick learned that lesson after he was caught dogfighting. That's a bad way to learn that lesson, because then you still have people on you years and years and years later, even though you've apologized, even though you've paid time in prison for what you've done. They never let it go. At least just having a bad attitude is not the worst way to learn how to deal with the media. And, you know, you look at guys like Donald Trump and you wonder, maybe some guys never do learn. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose, and that is, so far as I know, the final Super Bowl take of the day, the final Cam Newton take of the day. Maybe even the week, unless he says something else. Who knows? But I have to talk about another polarizing figure, because he's a guy I refuse to talk about him. By and large, with the exception of me saying I don't want to talk about him, I refuse to talk about him. That's Johnny Manziel. There's not a whole lot of ways to talk about Johnny Manziel. He's got a lot of problems. He's got issues of of irresponsibility, and he's also probably got some kind of addiction problem. We don't know exactly what. He went to rehab. We don't know what for. I think it's careless to speculate as to what, but he's got some kind of issues. And so I really didn't want to talk about Johnny Manziel, build the show around the idea of talking about a guy who just needs some help. Okay, like people are talking about Johnny Manziel, and the conversation is the sports conversation that we always have. Well, I wouldn't build my team around him. I wouldn't have drafted him. Do you think the Cowboys are going to pick him up? Like, first and foremost, with Johnny Manziel needs help. He needs help. And so I didn't want to talk about Johnny Manziel unless there was some angle of this story that hadn't really been discussed before. And lo and behold, there was. Johnny Manziel went to Texas A&M University, and there was a culture of enabling around Johnny Manziel that started with the coaches. And the reason why we're hearing about this culture now, today, is because Kyle Allen, the quarterback that was at A&M last year, he transferred out. And so he was talking to Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports today, and he was talking about the culture at Texas A&M University. And by the way, they lost another quarterback as well, Kyler Murray, transferred out of Texas A&M as well. And so you've just got guys leaving the school, a school that by all rights should be good, right? When Johnny Manziel was there, they beat Alabama. They look to be trending upwards, and all of a sudden you've got this plateau. They've become okay with losing, and you're like, what's wrong with this school? Why are you losing quarterbacks like this? Why are they transferring away? Okay, because you don't have a bad team. And as far as X's and O's go, you don't have a bad coach either, Kevin Sumlin. But there was a culture there that Kyle Allen didn't like. He didn't like it at all. There's this culture of enabling. Johnny Manziel was a great player, and he got away with murder at A&M. He did whatever he wanted. He signs a bunch of autographs, which is against the NCAA rules, to make money. And besides the fact that I think that that's absolutely bogus, he should be able to make money off of that. But if you know that those are the rules, then you can't do it, okay? Because then there's a penalty. So the penalty gets dished out. Johnny Manziel is suspended for a half of football. I've never seen that before or since. Somebody suspended for a half? He got suspended for a half. And so he suits up and everything, and he tries to come out onto the field, and Kevin Sumlin is standing there in the locker room tunnel yelling at him and telling him to go back. But, I mean, you didn't even give him a real punishment. Half a game is not a punishment that anybody's afraid of. It's like, okay, if we're down by 12 going into halftime, I'll bring us back. What does that prove? You've got to take away significant playing time if you're going to do anything, if you're going to hold anybody responsible. Never happened. Never happened to Johnny Manziel. And the way that his parents are talking about his situation as well, it's like nobody ever learned in Johnny's life to tell him no to stuff. And now that he's older, you tell him no, you're probably not really in his life. But you've got his father on sports radio telling people, you know, they've got to get him under control or he's going to be dead by 25. You're his dad. Who else is going to get him under control? And who is they? Who is they? The NFL? The Browns? That's not their responsibility. And so you're looking at this, and it's another strike against Texas A&M. It's another strike against Kevin Sumlin, because he built a culture where people don't have to listen to him. And I don't know how you manage to pitch that to parents, because that's what college coaches are when it comes to recruiting athletes. You're pitchmen. You go into a family's living room and you pitch to mom, you pitch to dad. Your son is going to be okay with me. Your son is going to be okay. He's going to learn how to be a man playing for this football team. How do you pitch that if you're Kevin Sumlin? Without lying, because the culture was so bad. A player just walked out the door, went to Houston, didn't want to have anything to do with you. He's gone. And players want to be coached. Players want to be coached. That's what they show up for, especially at this stage in their careers. What they're hoping is that they will learn something that will allow them to succeed at the next level of the game or at the next level of their lives. And here you just have Kevin Sumlin just letting guys do whatever they want. You know, the offensive line is not on the same page blocking. Like, nobody's on the same page with anybody. It's disorganized. How do you expect to win football games in chaos? Like, you're going to win a handful of games based on sheer talent because you are Texas A&M. You will recruit bigger, stronger, faster guys than a lot of the teams you play against. But guys, you play in the SEC West. Okay. So you're playing Alabama. You're playing Auburn when they're good. Who can you beat like that? And so Kevin Sumlin, who I think is a really good coach. I think he's a really, really good coach. He's on the hot seat for something that shouldn't even be an issue for him. Okay? Because a guy that's smart in terms of what it is to plan a game shouldn't be worried about his job because he can't keep his locker room under control. It just seems strange. And I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that you've two quarterbacks transferred away from your school, didn't want anything to do with you because the culture in the locker room was wrong. And it's bad. You can't win, and you can't win football games with a bad culture. You know, if you want to say whatever you want to say about the Panthers, and you want to say about Cam and how they were a showboating bunch, and you couldn't control them, and you couldn't stop Cam from dancing. That was a group of guys that was very close knit, and Ron Rivera, their head coach, they listen to him. Okay, and those are grown men who collect a paycheck. You're not coaching men. Okay, you're turning boys into men, and you can't do that if you're enabling Johnny Manziel to do what it is that Johnny Manziel does. Because you say his name, and at this point, like, I don't even want to go down the whole rap sheet at this point of just all of the things that have happened. And the only thing that makes this story interesting is just like, okay, there's another pit stop in Johnny's life where somebody could have put their foot down and told him no and taught him a life lesson, and they didn't do it. And that is the big crime there. And that is the big tragedy. You can't be a teacher or a leader of any kind and not have and contain within yourself the ability to tell others no, especially when it's stuff that you know they shouldn't be doing. Okay, Johnny Manziel it's already hard enough not to inflate these guys' heads to massive degrees. You've got all the other students on the campus treating them like they're a king. All right, you're the coach, though. You're the guy making money. He's not making money. Do your job and coach him. And that's what Kyle Allen wanted. He wanted to be coached. Now, I don't know that he necessarily made the best decision going to the University of Houston there. I mean, that's a good school. They recruited well, but like if you talk about a school that is just hit or miss in producing quarterbacks, you have no idea. They throw the ball a ton at that school, so that must be fun. But then NFL scouts at the next level have no idea what to do with you. I don't know that Houston's probably the choice there, but they have no idea what to do with you. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose, and I thank you so much for joining me today, talking about polarizing figures. Okay, and I've got an alert here. We're coming up against the break, but I've got an alert. All Hamilton County schools are on a 2-hour delay for Wednesday morning. Again, all Hamilton County schools are on a 2-hour delay for Wednesday morning. And we'll keep you updated with those facts here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Not just on this show, but on Twitter, make sure to check us out on Twitter. Seriously, we have all of the news from the greater Chattanooga area, and you can find that on our Facebook page as well. This is Clutch with Keon Rose, and we'll talk about Jim Harbaugh. My girlfriend has some questions about football and the Super Bowl, and I'll have to explain. And Cam Newton, man crush. Next, you're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
What's going on?
Get a free $20 gas gift card. Free. That's right, a free $20 gas gift card. Just tell Rick at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds on Brainerd Road you heard the offer on Hot News Talk Radio. A $20 gas gift card for free. When you tell Rick you heard it on Hot News Talk Radio. Buy or sell 30 grams of gold or 10 ounces of silver and get a free $20 gas gift card. It's the Valentine's Day sale at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds on Brainerd Road. 60, 70, 80% off when you buy rings, pendants, bracelets, and necklaces. Cash, and more cash. When you sell all week, buy, sell, trade at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds on Brainerd Road. Mention you heard this at Hot News Talk Radio and get a free $20 gas gift card. Free. Cash. This huge Valentine's Day sale's going on now. Don't miss it. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds Valentine's Day sale. Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga.
You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade show for your business and you need a very affordable venue. Are you looking for a place for your birthday gala or services to start up a church? Look no further than the Hidden Gem in Hickson. It's an overlooked, newly appointed reception hall right here in Hickson, Tennessee. Big space, small price. That's right, big space, small price. Call Mr. Chu and ask for a tour. 316-7388. That's 423-316-7388. He'll tell you a lot more about the venue. Rent this venue today. Just call 423-316-7388 and ask for Mr. Chu.
Hello, I'm Mike Little, candidate for criminal court judge with 25 years of criminal court experience, which makes me the most qualified candidate. The experience I have gained from handling over 4,000 cases in state and federal court has equipped me with the ability to be fair, impartial, and independent. As your next criminal court judge, I will focus on keeping Hamilton County safe. I view this position as a public service and will strive to improve the daily operation of the court. I humbly ask for your trust and vote in the March 1st Republican primary.
Paid for by the committee to elect Mike Little. Barry Abbott, Treasurer.
Lay your burdens down at the Woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door. The perfect gift for the perfect match. Surprise her with a Woodhouse gift card. Call us today at 423-443-4478 or visit us online at chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
A few lingering flurries and snow showers will continue through the nighttime, diminishing late. Cold, though, lows near 20. For Wednesday, after an early morning flurry, becoming partly cloudy, drier highs into the lower, maybe middle 30s. For Thursday, some sun, a little warmer highs, 40 to 42. Try Little Caesars large, hot and ready bacon wrap crust, deep dish, wrapped in over 3.5 feet of crispy bacon and hot and ready every day between 4 and 8 p.m. only at Little Caesars. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A Signal Mountain school counselor has been arrested on harassment charges after an unknown victim says she sent annoying and disruptive messages through Facebook and text messages. A St. Elmo check-into cash was robbed at gunpoint on Tennessee Avenue in St. Elmo. A canvass of the area found no further evidence or any witnesses, but a store clerk did not sustain any serious injuries and did not require any medical treatment. The suspect is described as a black male, 6 feet tall, slender build, wearing a teardrop tattoo under his left eye and a lettered tattoo of NY under the left side of his neck. If you have any information, call 423-698-2525. The feds arrested a couple in Chattanooga after reportedly finding 374 grams of ice meth in an apartment in East Brainerd. The building had already been under surveillance on February the 2nd, and a search was started at 7:50 p.m. Meth was found inside the bathroom. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You know, talking about college football will turn you into a cynical person. You will become a cynical person because what you inevitably end up doing is going and looking for what are the different angles. What are you really getting at? And in fact, college sports, not just football. You question what people are really getting at, and here's why. Anytime you have an organization that makes millions, billions and billions of dollars with a B on the backs of people who they are not paying at all, then you can't just accept everything that they do. For instance, University of Louisville, they gave themselves a postseason ban. Never mind that they have players on there who are doing things well. They're doing things the right way. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just playing basketball the way that they've been coached. But because the organization has basically given players prostitutes and not just players, like recruits, people they've been recruiting, prostitutes and things like that, you end up with this whole sticky situation, and Louisville bans themselves from the postseason to avoid the NCAA giving them an even harsher ban. Like basically the NCAA is coming in to be the angry parent, give the child a spanking, and the child is like, look, I'm already hitting myself. Don't do anything. And then that parent says, okay, the punishment that you've given yourself is enough. So that's where you are in Louisville. And so you're like, well, you know what the obvious reason that they banned themselves was. It wasn't because they just had the dignity to do it in the first place. It's because they're trying to avoid a punishment. There's always an extra twist when it comes to a story about the NCAA. So now you've got Jim Harbaugh, coach of Michigan, bringing the Wolverines back. That's going to be fun next year. Big Ten football, it's back. And Jim Harbaugh wants to do training camp for his players in Florida. And the SEC is trying to block it. And their reasoning is because Jim Harbaugh wants to do this, obviously, during spring break. This is just, during spring break. But players are allowed time off from playing. They're allowed time off from playing. And the SEC's argument against Jim Harbaugh coming to Florida to practice is, why is he practicing? He should let his student athletes go off and do whatever they want. If they want to go on a mission trip, which a lot of guys do, they should go off on a mission trip. If they want to just kick back and relax, they should be able to do that. They shouldn't be practicing football right now. And this is a great point. This is, in fact, my argument is not against the point that the SEC is making. It's a great point. I don't know that you can necessarily argue with the logic behind that. But because college sports has turned me into such a cynical person, I'm wondering what the SEC's real reason is for wanting to stop Jim Harbaugh from practicing on spring break. Because it cannot be that they care so much about the children of the Big Ten that they would like Jim Harbaugh to stop practicing on during spring break. Like it doesn't make any sense. So it has to be the location of this camp. Jim Harbaugh, as we know, is a fantastic recruiter. He's done a great job of it during his time as a college coach. Heck, he even did a good job of it during his time as an NFL coach in terms of bringing over Anquan Bolden and players to the 49ers to give them a chance to go to the Super Bowl, which they did. You know, he's done an incredible job as a recruiter. I don't think that Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and Gus Malzahn and Brett Bielema and Jim McElwain honestly and sincerely care that Jim Harbaugh is practicing his Big Ten athletes during spring break. Here's what I think they don't like. Jim Harbaugh, an excellent recruiter, is getting an opportunity to come down with his football team and recruit in the South during a week when they are not recruiting. I think that's what they're afraid of. And I am 100% sure that I'm right about that. I have no sources. I don't have anybody telling me this, but this is just the obvious logical situation here, which is that the thing that you don't want to happen is Jim Harbaugh chilling out in your backyard, recruiting students that you usually get to recruit without any competition. And he's starting really early, and he's bringing his football team, and he's making them look cool. And here he is chilling out in Florida. And I imagine, though I, again, have no actual proof, it's just how could you not think this? Jim McElwain is the angriest because that's his backyard. And honestly, Florida's got a long way to go, right? They don't even recruit the best of all the teams in Florida. Florida State passed them up a while ago, and it's been a minute since Florida has really, really mattered in the state of Florida. Just even in that own state. And they're getting it back, okay? McElwain's a good coach. The more they win, Florida will be back, okay? They didn't lose Greer this season. Who knows how far they go? And if that's not a different SEC title game, if Florida gets their shot with Will Greer at quarterback. Lost him to performance-enhancing drugs and the suspension that came from that. But if they had that shot, how far could they have gone? Because they beat a very good Tennessee team, loaded. Okay, they had a good resume this season. So I can't imagine that Jim McElwain is thrilled that Jim Harbaugh is just chilling out in his backyard, recruiting his players and recruiting in an area that is his, and doing it during a time when nobody should be really doing anything, especially in the way of practicing. So the SEC is trying to block this. I have no idea how far those exact efforts will go, but I'm very interested in that story. Because they're not magnanimous, okay? They're not here being generous and saying to these guys, yeah, no, we really care about Big Ten athletes practicing during spring break. That's what they said. What they really care about is the recruiting. You're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today, just giving me just a little bit of your time. Before I move forward, I've got to mention the platforms. Always got to mention the platforms. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. And you can find us on YouTube. If you search Hot News Talk Radio, we'll be the first thing that comes up. And you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. And if you're following us on Twitter, then you're aware right now, all Hamilton County schools are on a 2-hour delay for Wednesday morning. Okay? Your kids have an extra 2 hours to get ready tomorrow morning. All Hamilton County schools are on a 2-hour delay for Wednesday morning. So I have to say that. And, of course, all the different places that you can listen to us. That would be hotnewstalkradio.com. And you can find us on the TuneIn Radio app. Again, that's the TuneIn Radio app. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow. Press play. And you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. I'll be a little remiss to not mention the game between Auburn and Tennessee tonight. Okay, the return of Bruce Pearl to Knoxville. He's coming back, and he's coming back with a team that's not as good as he hoped it would be. They haven't had a very good season. Tennessee has had a rocky season, but boy, their last game where they took down Kentucky, that was a game. They were down 21, rallied back to beat the Wildcats. Kevin Punter Jr. and Armani Moore took over the game. Okay, but Tennessee's had some disappointing losses this season too. Lost to Arkansas. That's actually after the Kentucky game. They lost to Arkansas. That's a weak loss. Like they just had games that are just disappointing. They had the loss to Georgia Tech. Had a loss to Auburn already in the season at Auburn. That's not a good loss. Lost the game to Georgia. Georgia's all right, but that's not a great loss either. They're just not. I don't know how they're going to make the tournament. I'm pretty sure they won't, but they've got the game against Auburn tonight. Big game because Auburn is going to Tennessee. So Bruce Pearl returns to the land that he once ruled. And it's going to be an interesting game because if both of these schools play to their highest potential, okay, you're going to you have two schools playing against each other that average about 70 points a game, and they shoot the ball extremely well. Both of them shoot above 40%. Both of them shoot the three around 35%. So again, like you've got a pretty even matchup statistically on paper. What I like about Tennessee in this game is I think that's of the two coaches just watching the games. And it's not that I've watched a ton of Auburn because they're not very good, but I have seen a few Tennessee games. Rick Barnes has done an excellent job coaching. Like you look at Rick Barnes and you're like, wow, this guy can coach. He's got late game stuff that he's got to get through. But you look at Rick Barnes and you're like, wow, no, this dude can coach. And he's recruited well. Armani Moore, Kevin Punter Jr. are the two stars of this team. But I think I prefer Armani Moore because Moore's just got this way of getting hot. And when he's hot, it's unbelievable. I don't know if it's fair. I don't think it's a fair comparison, but you could call them college basketball Splash Brothers. Like they just get on fire all of a sudden, and it's not easy to stop. Okay, when Armani Moore gets rolling, good luck. The only issue that Tennessee has had is that they give up about 1 million points a game, and their other main issue is that they don't shoot very well from the free throw line. I checked that. That's actually Auburn that doesn't shoot very well from the free throw line. But in terms of limiting their turnovers in a game, 11.5 turnovers a game, that's still pretty high. Tennessee's got some games where they ought to win, and then they go ahead and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. I think there are games that they ought to have won, and they just don't handle their business very well. So it's going to be interesting to see this team grow and progress, because I do think that Rick Barnes does a good job of not just finding good talent, but unless that talent is Kevin Durant, he does a really good job of holding on to them too. Like they stay all 4 years. I like that because that's continuity. That continuity goes a long way to making an NCAA tournament and possibly making an NCAA tournament run, which I know Rick wants to change in his legacy. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. And we've got the segment that you've all been waiting for. It's been long overdue. It's been teased for about half a week now. I mean, I'm sorry. Jay asks. Jay is my girlfriend, and she asks questions on behalf of all of those who do not follow sports frequently, who do not know what a Tampa 2 defense is or looks like, because that's not information that the general normal population needs to know. And Jay's here with me. Thank you for joining me, Jay.
We're just going to start with, what is that?
What is a Tampa 2 defense?
Yeah.
It is a coverage type of defense. So instead of playing man-to-man, you basically are putting players in spaces, and you've got your two safeties, which are two of your defensive backs, who are basically, I'm finding that the more I explain, the more I have to explain.
Yeah.
But not your defensive line and not your linebackers and not your corners. So what's left is your safeties. And they're covering an area deep in the field to stop you from throwing the ball deep, essentially.
I feel like
if I could
we're
draw
gonna
it,
have to talk about that another time.
yes, if I could
Those are
draw
the
it, that'd be
questions
so
I
much
have.
easier.
I feel more confused. I came in here to be unconfused, and now I'm more confused.
You're more confused, and I am sorry about that. That is, yep.
Let's go to questions that make sense to me. Ready?
Questions with easier explanations to them. Like, I could bore you to death explaining it, but
So, okay.
Mhm.
My questions are about the Super Bowl.
This is the Super Bowl edition. That is true.
Yeah. So I'm figuring, like, especially Super Bowl edition means I should probably ask some questions about the Super Bowl.
But possibly.
Yeah, that generally helps a little bit. So, okay, Super Bowl 50. That means that this is like 50 Super Bowls that they've had, which I'm not going to lie, I thought there were more. What is the Super Bowl? Not like I realize that it's an event that happens. That's like the biggest thing in football, like every year. I get that. But I mean, like, what is it? Like, why is it called the Super Bowl? I used to think like the Super Bowl was like a really big bowl of like cereal or something, or soup, like soup or a bowl.
Or someone was just asking you if you would like soup or a bowl and making you choose between the impossible.
When I was a kid, like, it didn't. No, no, my parents weren't from America. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. So that being said, I've realized that it's a football thing, right? Obviously, game day, blah blah. But why is it called the Super Bowl, and what is it?
Well, just championship games have been called, especially in the tradition of college football, have been called bowl games. So just
why?
The stadium is just a giant bowl shape.
Oh wow!
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just that simple. It's not that complicated.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't have to overthink it. Stadium is shaped like a bowl.
Okay.
So the Super Bowl is, before the NFL was the NFL. It was two separate leagues, the NFL and the AFL. When the two leagues merged, the teams that were in the AFL would play, the best of the AFL would play the best of the NFL in a Super Bowl game. And that's how we have the Super Bowl.
It's not like ball, like the ball game, but with a really bad accent.
No, unfortunately. That would be much cooler.
Okay.
But no.
Okay. After we watched, like, I think in my limited sports expertise, okay, I felt like the game was actually pretty good. I enjoyed watching the teams play.
You are one of the few people who have said that. A lot of people thought the game wasn't a good game.
Why?
It was a very good defensive game.
It was, okay, that's fair.
Defenses are fun to watch too.
I don't play professional football, and I know that if I did, I would probably come out like a pancake. I tried that one time with your friends, and I still have a dislocated shoulder. So
right.
Look,
and I'm sorry about that. Steven.
Yeah. He was 6'4".
Bad things happened.
So that being said, I was kind of wondering, like, with Cam Newton, he seemed to have nobody guarding for him. Like,
yeah, their offensive line was bad.
The Broncos kept just showing up like they were invited to the party. Like someone was handing out lollipops and crackers and all the things. Budweiser, as Manning shared so often.
So many times.
You know, every time we turned around, Cam's getting ready to throw the ball, and there's a Bronco. Please explain.
What ended up happening is that the Panthers have, I say their offensive line's bad. It's really not bad. It's average to like slightly below average. Okay, they're just like some average guys. Like Michael Ower's not a bad football player. He's not a great football player either. He's okay. You know, so they have those guys are playing offensive line. The problem is they're playing the Denver defensive line, and led by DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller. Those two guys are arguably they made up one of the best defensive lines in Super Bowl history, and the Panthers didn't know what to do with him. Von Miller's too fast. They didn't know what to do. And DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, you could double team them, which is basically put two guys on one person. But you can't double team them both. And that was the problem. You try and double Von Miller. Oh, look, there's DeMarcus on cam. Try and double DeMarcus. Oh, look, there's Von Miller. And that was the problem they had all night.
Okay, there was a movie that came out forever ago called The Blind Side.
Correct.
I think the guy's name was Michael Oher.
This is the same Michael Oher.
Okay.
And we've had this conversation before because that movie makes me upset.
Yeah, kind of came across kind of dumb in the movie.
He did come across dumb in the movie. Real life Michael Oher, smart guy. Does know how to speak, actually.
Yeah.
He's a smart guy and quite articulate.
That though, in terms of how the playing came out on Super Bowl Sunday.
That Michael Oher did not actually defend Cam Newton's blind side.
I was confused about that. Like the blind side continued to be blind is what it looked like.
Correct. And if you knew the names of the guys, that was DeMarcus Ware who was going up against Michael Oher.
MVP?
Von Miller was the MVP.
So
he was on the other side.
So explain to me the game MVP, because that was another question I had. How do you get an MVP of the game plus an MVP of the league? Plus, like, explain to me how the Super Bowl is its own subculture of football.
I mean, I don't know if I can explain how it's its own subculture, but it does have its own MVP. The league MVP is a regular season award. So,
meaning
week 1 to week 16, when all of the teams are playing, that is what they're awarding you for. The best player in the league for the regular season. And then the playoffs are a few teams qualify for the playoffs. That is the postseason. And in the Super Bowl, whoever plays the best in the Super Bowl basically is the MVP of that game.
So the Super Bowl has an MVP, but then so it was Miller?
It was Von Miller.
Von Miller and Cam Newton were both MVPs. One was for...
Von Miller was the Super Bowl MVP.
Okay.
So the best player just in that game.
Right.
And Cam was the best player in the regular season.
So not the league, just the season.
Both.
Okay. So next question. Is it possible for the league / season MVP to be named MVP and not play in the Super Bowl, like their team not get to the Super Bowl?
Yes. It's happened a few times. I wish I could remember off the top of my head when it's happened. JJ Watt almost won it last year. And if he had won it last year, the Texans didn't even sniff the Super Bowl or sniff the playoffs. So yeah, that could have happened.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But obviously if you win the Super Bowl and you were the MVP, you had to play in the Super Bowl. Is it possible for the Super Bowl MVP to be not as great? However you would say that nicely.
Yeah, it's because it's kind of a subjective thing. There have been guys who have honestly just been good just in the Super Bowl.
Really?
So the Redskins played the Broncos in the 80s and just smashed them. And the Super Bowl MVP was their running back, Timmy Smith, who has set all kinds of records that will probably never be broken. That was the game that he had in that Super Bowl. But he is otherwise known as a pretty forgettable player. He's just not that great otherwise. And you never will. Was out of the league like 2 years later.
Hats off to Timmy.
Yeah, Timmy Smith. It's just...
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
So that answers your question.
I guess so.
Well, thank you, Jay, for joining me today on Clutch with Keon Rose. This Jay Asks, it is by far our most popular segment that comes and goes whenever it feels like. So we'll try and bring you back for whenever. Any questions you have, we'll just bring it in.
Sure. Like next time you can chew on why Cam Newton is your man crush.
Cam Newton is not my man crush.
I have to fight.
He is
for attention.
He is a polarizing figure.
Cam, I will find you.
Okay.
We will have this conversation.
Well, okay. I don't know if you want to fight Cam. Your last football encounter was not good. Cam is. No.
I will not fight you.
I'm saying, what are you going to do if you find him? Have a heart-to-heart?
Oh, we will have a heart.
You will have a heart-to-heart. This has been Clutch with Keon Rose here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for joining me today. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Always stay clutch. And also remember that all Hamilton County schools are on a 2-hour delay for Wednesday morning. Thanks for listening.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga.